Hello everyone and welcome to another weekly journal with me. If you're new here, I'm Catalina and I am the person behind by Catalina Designs. And in this week I have something interesting to explain you and to show you how you can do it. We discussed a bit last week about adjusting a pattern according to your gauge, and I will explain and show you two methods how you can do that. But first, let's talk about what I was doing this week, what projects I have, if I have something. We have some questions to discuss about it, two questions that I got with the form, and yeah, let's get started. Okay, so first, because I have two questions, I will start with this ones just to make sure that I won't forget about them, and then I will show you what I was working on. So first, it's not a question, but it was such a nice comment and feedback from Jennifer Vega, who told me that feels like we're already friends, and she's enjoying so much these weekly journals. And I wanted to tell you all because that comments really made my day, because this is how I'm feeling about these weekly journals. I'm feeling like I'm talking with friends. I don't have any yarny friends, like physical friends to meet with here where I'm living. This community is everything that I had regarding the yarn and everything. I'm not talking this in my personal life with anyone because, well, a bit about what I was doing, what I was working. Oh, this sweater is nice, you did it, because everybody knows what I'm doing. Lately I'm getting discovered by the parents in my daughter's class, and they say, oh, I saw you on TikTok, oh, I saw you on... So I'm like, okay, I don't know what to say about it and how to react about it, but yeah, it feels nice but also embarrassing at some point. I don't know why but yeah. So I'm happy and I'm feeling like I'm talking with friends too. So thank you, Jennifer, for leaving this comment. It was really nice and felt me feel so good, and give me everything I needed to just keep doing this, because even if it's taking time, it's like, but it feels nice to have such a great feedback from your side. And now I have interesting question from Lindsay, who is interested. She also loves the weekly journals, and she's looking forward to the mosaic crochet pattern. I have an idea. I told you last week of using mosaic crochet, but it will be an easy color design, so it won't be something, I don't know, motifs or something. It will be simple, but it will use mosaic crochet to create that color work. And she has a question about the short rows, because she's thinking that there are not too many videos on short rows, and she was thinking about the bottom up sweaters to work short rows. So for the top down, I already told you that you can work next to the neckline, and I have, I think, two sweaters designed which are using this, and yeah, it's the Coreopsis sweater for sure. And you can, and the varsity jacket also has short rows at the neckline. So you can do the short rows at the neckline. First, I will tell again for the top down sweater in two different ways. First, if you're working the ribbing, or you're working a ribbing, then you should start around with the back stitches, I don't know, maybe only the up to here, and then adding with every turning round a few more stitches until you'll get here. This will add a few extra rows in the back, and the neckline here will get a bit lower. I showed you with the weekly journals with round yoke sweater challenge that you can add for the top down also before splitting into sleeves and body, but for the bottom up sweaters you cannot do it before joining the sleeves. For example, if you're working circular up to here and then you're adding the sleeves, because if you're adding extra rows, this will high up the when joining will high up the front, so basically you will get shorter front panel, but here will be with the same length. So the only thing to do it is to add them at the neckline as well. So after finishing getting, I don't know, over here, you're starting to work the rows only on the back panel, not on the front panel, and it will be the same. You will start basically from a full round, and it will be reverse. It will start, I will show you maybe in a video because it's a bit difficult. If it's a top-down sweater but it's a panel construction, so it's not like full body and then adding the sleeve, then this can be done to lower the front panel and have the back panel higher, is to on the front panel to shape the neckline. So basically when you're getting where your neckline want to be for the front panel, you're just working the shoulders, and you can start over here and increase, decrease until you're creating here on the front panel a hole. But yeah, it's really depending on your construction and how you feel comfortable to wear the sweater. For example, this, which is the lava sweater, the pattern I'm working on right now, doesn't have short rows, but I don't feel uncomfortable wearing it. But it depends on every person construction and how they feel about it. Yeah, I need to do this in a video so you can see how you can do it, and I think this was the request of Lindsay to just show you in a video, but it will be somewhere in the future. And another question for Julie. She's working on a glitter zipper vest pattern. This pattern is one that I designed for Hobby Yarn years ago, so it's an old pattern, but she finds the sleeve fit tight around the shoulder. So first it's important to see the gauge. If you get the same measurements and in the pattern, then maybe it's again something of related with our body construction. And the only thing that you can do is because that vest, I will show you, maybe I will put a picture over here, front panels and sleeve are worked in vertical rows, so it's in half double crochet and back loop only to create that ribbing. And the thing that you can do is to work, because when you're starting to work the short rows, to decrease for the armhole on the back panel and front panel, the idea is to work more rows here. Okay, so when you start in decrease or increase, I don't remember exactly, to work more rows doing so, and you'll have to repeat the same with the sleeve. So this will be the how you can adjust that. Yeah, so you will start basically, if the sleeve says to go like with the front panel, to go with a number of stitches for up to armpit, and then you'll start to increase. Or if you started, because I don't really remember and I just check your question right now, if it starts from over here and then you start decreasing, that means that you will need to decrease either more stitches on each row, or to go with more rows to decrease, to create a deeper armhole. And yeah, So that was it with the questions. And now I want to show you what I was working on first all the week. Again, I have to write patterns, so when I'm writing patterns I don't have really time for doing something else. But yeah, I'm working on the lava sweater pattern because next week I want to make a tester call for it, and it took me a lot to just make the charts because the charts for the yoke. I love to make the charts. It's a lot of work in it, but they help me to better write the pattern, to have, I don't know, it's easier to write the pattern following the charts. And because I was thinking this is a simple stitch, is the mole stitch or linen stitch, so we have a single crochet and a chain one, and when designing the pattern, the single crochet chain one repeat, I consider it like one single stitch in my counting and everything when designing. And because it's offset, so with the next row you will have where you have the chain is the single crochet, and where it was the single crochet is the chain, then it kind of took me a while to put it in a chart. It was easier to just consider the stitch repeat pattern, so stitch single crochet and chain one to consider one stitch and maybe draw it in a square, but I didn't want it to make it I don't know, I thought that it would be more clear with the stitches, so it took me a while. And I will show you right away. Besides that, I didn't finish only just the charts. Now I have to write the pattern, and I will make a tester call next week, and hopefully it will be finished by December, because yeah, it took me a while to write it and I didn't find time to make it faster and to make it available for testing sooner. But yeah, okay, another thing that I was working this week, I managed to work a few rounds for the sleeve on my round yoke sweater from the round yoke sweater challenge, and I decided to go with a few decreases. Remember that we calculated if you want a shaped sleeve how to do it, but now I want to stop with decreases because I find it really nice like this. And also I worked a few rows in the length, but let me show you how it fits. Okay, so this is how it looks like with the sleeve. It's almost, I think I could use it like this, but anyway, I will do a full sleeve. It's a bit not too straight because I'm keeping it in a project bag, but yeah, this is how it's looking. Don't worry about the neckline because it's off. I explained you that it's off because I missed a few stitches, didn't line them up. But yeah, I don't mind having this type of mistakes, small mistakes. I'm not like oh, it needs to be perfect anymore. I was before, but now I'm not really too I don't know, I let them be. I also worked a few more rows on this, which is the sunshine sweater in a leftover yarn version. I know that the progress doesn't seem too much from the last week, but actually I finished the sleeves and working on the sleeve, and now I'm working on the shoulder. I still have a few rows on the shoulders, and then I will split for back and front panel to work the neckline opening. And I am crazy about these colors. I don't know, they are looking so nice together, and I'm happy that I used them because they were all tangled and I was like, every time I was looking, oh my god, it is such a beautiful yarn, but I don't feel like I want to stay hours and hours to detangle them. But I'm happy I did, and I can't wait to finish this. It's kind of addicted, but I don't have enough time to work on it. and this small tiny stitches is taking me a while. Then I was working, oof, this has a lot of yarns hanging. I was working on this sweater. I managed to split it into sleeves and body. I was posting about it yesterday on a short video, and someone says that can wait for the pattern. Well, the pattern is out already. It's the sprinkle sweater, and I just followed the same pattern but using the leftover yarn. And remember when I said that I started the cardigan with leftover yarn, the crochet version of the cozy fluffy cardigan, that I don't have the fuzzy yarn, but here it was in the project bag with this sweater. And so yeah, I follow the same pattern. I'm using different weights of yarn. I have from bulky, medium weight, chunky. I think I have also DK weight. So DK I don't know, but medium for sure. And I'm using the same 10mm crochet hook. So different yarns, different textures, different weights are going pretty well together. So the pattern is on my website. We have a video tutorial as well, only that I'm using some leftover yarn because sometimes sometimes it feels so relaxing to simply follow another pattern, and knowing that basically I'm giving it a refresh to the pattern, making a new model, a new sample, but also is relaxing that I know that I won't need to grade, I won't need to write a pattern for it. So yeah, these were the things that I was working on this week. And the lava sweater pattern is taking me so long, so I wasn't expected about that because it's a simple design, but yeah, it took me a while with a chart, but I'm getting there and finishing writing it this week, and hopefully next week I will do the tester call. And yeah, so now we will talk about how to adjust a pattern according to your gauge. I think I found out this the second method that I will show you years back, when so many people were asking about, I cannot find a yarn, I find it only thicker yarn here where I'm living, and it was difficult for them to work the pattern, and I was using that method to be faster when adjusting the pattern to their gauge and to their yarn. And I made a blog post about it, and now I will explain you again how you can do that. We will do it on a simple panel sweater because it's easier for you to understand. I already made some calculation about how to adjust the pattern, the cloud sweater pattern, because I was thinking that someone told me, oh, my biggest hook is 10mm, I don't have a 15mm crochet hook, and I was thinking maybe I will show you how to adjust the pattern to your gauge and using a different hook size and different weight yarn. So but because of the round yoke, because of the increases, it will be a bit more difficult and will take time. I didn't have time to put them on in this video, but maybe I will show you next week. So yeah, thinking that having the different gauge than the designers or the pattern ask for sometimes can be frustrating, because you don't feel comfortable to change the hook size because that one is the one that you like to work with. I have such a long period loving to work with a 4mm crochet hook and with DK width yarn, and I wasn't comfortable to work with a different yarn weight or a bigger crochet hook. So that is why I want to show you that you can do it, you can make it, and you can adjust a pattern according to your gauge. So We will move to my laptop because I will show you a spreadsheet because it's easier to make all that math because it will be about math. So always it's about math when talking about stitches, measurements and rows. Okay, so this is the simple sweater that we want to adjust. We have a pattern, we have the measurements from the pattern, and we have different gauge, or we want to use a different yarn weight. So what we can do, so if you are not able to get to the designer gauge, which is this one. Okay, so I have different numbers here. I have 16 stitches instead of 12, and 10 rows instead of 8. And this is the designer instructions. Start with, meaning the panel, starting with 66 stitches, working 48 rows in length. Then for the sleeve, the stitches that we need to start with, and then the number of rows for the sleeves. Here at the neckline will be easier to understand after we will talk about how you can adjust. And I have two methods to adjust the pattern according to your gauge. First one, having our pattern, and very important, if we have in the pattern that we bought or that we are following, if we have a measurement diagram, or not necessarily a diagram, but to have the numbers, so the width, the length, the sleeve, and so on. I have here measurements in centimeters. This is just for example, this is not an actual pattern, so you might not get a wearable sweater if you're following this. Actually, they are kind of okay, but I don't want to be blamed that, oh, I was trying to make the pattern in your video and it didn't work out. So it's just for example. Okay, so now I will have method 1 to adjust this simple sweater that I want to make. And let's just method 1. And it's all regarding how the pattern is written and what information we have in the pattern, because this is also important. So method 1 is to use the measurements in the pattern and to transform those measurements into stitches and rows according to our gauge. So to start, so I will have here start. So if I want to start, I have 55 centimeters to have in width. So this will mean I will get a formula here, 50 centimeters, and I want to transform this into stitches. So I'm using the gauge over here, so I have 50 centimeters multiply by 16, which is the number of stitches that I have in my gauge. I'm dividing it by 10, which is my gauge measurements. Why you're not working? Okay, and divided by 10. And now I need to start with 80 stitches instead of 16 stitches. So this is how much affects a 4 stitches difference between the gauge. You might think, I'm pretty close, I have only 4 stitches off, but it's actually kind of pretty much. So from 66 stitches, we will need to start with 80 stitches. And now let's see panel rows, how many rows we will have to work. So we will do the same. So I'm taking the length, which is 60, and then I'm multiplying with the number of rows in my pattern, and then divided by my pattern, my gauge measurements. Okay, and I will work 60 rows for the panel in length. Now with the sleeve, so sleeve width, I have here the armhole depth or the sleeve width, but you need to think that this is the front, and we need basically to have this multiplied by 2, okay, because this is not is only one side of the sleeve, is basically half of the sleeve. So this will mean that I will have for width 40 centimeters multiplied by 16, which is my gauge stitches, and divided by 10, which is my gauge measurements. So I will need to start with 64 stitches for the sleeve width, and I will need to work in length. Let's see, so we have 45 stitches multiplied by 45 centimeters multiplied by 10, which is my gauge rows, and divided by 10. And I will work 45 rows for the sleeve length. Now for the neckline, if you need to seam the shoulders, or if you need to I don't know, to decrease here for the neckline, then you basically will calculate the stitches that you will need to start with here, and with the neckline that you will need for the neckline. So for the neckline, let's just put it here. Neckline, I will need 25 centimeters multiplied by 16 and divided by 10. I will need 40 stitches here. This will mean that from my starting width, I will have 40 stitches for the shoulders, which mean 20 and 20. Okay, so I will have 20 stitches here, 20 stitches here, and then that I will need to seam for the shoulders. And if I want to make decreases for the neckline, I know that I need to get to 40 stitches here, so maybe I will start with, I don't know, 25 and then decrease 5 stitches here. This you need to adjust, you need to see the pattern. But if it's a boat neck, so you don't have decreases over here, then means that you will calculate the neckline width and see how many stitches you need to let for the neckline, and then how many stitches to sew. So this is basically the first method to transform the measurements into the pattern into the stitches and rows according to your gauge. And another method 2, okay, I will put this again over here. Okay, let's just say that the designer doesn't give us the measurements of the sweater, so which is not that probably, but for example me at the beginning I wasn't doing that, so it might be, but you love the design and you want to make it, so we can adjust it even so, but we need to have the gauge information in the pattern and our gauge. And first we will calculate the proportion between our gauge and the designer gauge, which means what is basically this doing is calculating how many stitches I will need to cover a stitch from the pattern. Okay, I will just put it here, and we will need to make it the same with the rows. So to do that, I'm just dividing my number of stitches from the gauge to the number of stitches from the designer gauge. So this means that I will need 1 stitch point 33 to cover 1 stitch from the pattern. And for the rows, let's put it over here. I have 10 rows divided by 8, and I will need 125 rows to cover 1 row from the pattern. This number might seem weird at the beginning. It's better not to round them now if you want to calculate. So I won't put here 1.5, 1.5 because maybe this will change something into the pattern. So better to just round it on our final numbers. Okay. And now I need to start in the pattern. It says that I need to start with 66 stitches. So this is the stitches, this is the rows. Let's put it like this. Okay, so I need to start with 66 stitches, but I have this difference. So for 66 stitches multiplied by 1.33, which is 1 stitch and 33 basically, I will need 88 stitches. 66. And for the panel rows, 48 stitches multiplied by 1.25, I will need 6 stitches. I don't know what is the difference because it should be the same. And then 48 stitches for the sleeve multiplied by this 64. I think I messed it up here. And rows, I have 36 multiplied by 1.25, and I have 45 rows. I need to check this again. Because it was 55 here. Haha, not 50. So see, we have the same numbers, so we get to the same numbers as the previous one, but we calculate it different way. So now basically you apply this, multiplying everywhere you see in the pattern stitches, you multiply the number of stitches in the pattern with this number. Where you see rows, you multiply it with this number to get the number of stitches and rows that you will need to work. And another thing that it's important in this, so basically your tension is tighter than the one from the pattern. So big number within 4 stitches in gauge means that you're a tighter crocheter, or your tension is tighter than the designer's tension. So in this particular case, you need to pay attention that you will need more yarn than the one recommended in the pattern to complete a sweater. So if you want to buy only the yarn that you will need for that is recommended in the pattern, you might not get enough. If it were the reverse, you're a looser crocheter than the designer, and you will have here a smaller number than the designer, that means that you will need less yarn than the designers. So this is how we adjust a pattern. If you need to do that, if you want to do that, this is how you adjust it. Sometimes can be frustrated that you're not getting to the gauge of the designer, and this might help you. So I hope you will find those information that I just showed you interesting. You need to know that you can use those methods even if it's a knitting pattern, so it will work in any crochet or knit is the same. the same calculation that you'll need to do, and I hope you'll find them interesting. And next time when you see a pattern that require for which you need a different hook size that you feel comfortable with, or you're getting frustrated that you're not getting to the gauge from the pattern, maybe you should try this method and see how it works. But I need to tell you that sometimes you might not get not the same result you'll get to the measurement. You'll get anything you'll need to have the sweater to fit okay, as long as the measurements in the pattern are correct and everything was written correct in the pattern. But using a different yarn, thicker, thinner yarn might get a different drape of the sweater, the fabric to be different. But this doesn't mean that you won't have a wearable sweater or a wearable piece of clothing that you want to make. But and yeah, if you're making the gauge swatch first and you can see the fiber, how it feels, how it's in your hand, and if you feel comfortable with it, you can try it. I have the my precious sweater, which was my most wanted pattern ever, and it requires for a DK weight yarn, but I saw it in so many different yarn weights, from medium, from even thinner yarn, so sometimes can work. So you don't need to be okay, if I do that maybe it won't look the same. It won't look the same, it won't feel the same, but this doesn't mean that it won't be great. Okay, so that was for this week. I hope you learned something interesting during this weekly journal. I can't wait for the next one. I won't forget Lindsay to with the video for short rows for a bottom up sweater, but first I need to design it just because being bottom up and having to put the short rows at the end of the sweater, that means that I will need to build the sweater from the beginning, and I don't know when I will be able to do that, but maybe I will because I'm not planning to do any other sweater for this season, but maybe I will do it for a top. I don't know, bottom up top, but I need to explain me well if it's a bottom up like seamless, or if it's panels, because with panels it's just shaping the front panel at the neckline, but with seamless, working the round, and you will need to make those short rows at the neckline. So yeah, I'm writing down, maybe I will do a top with this construction, and I will show you the short rows to make them at the end of the sweater. Yeah, so this was it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something new today, and see you next week. Bye.